Hello all, welcome back to another Lupin video discussion. My name is Musical Joker, and today I want to discuss the second season of Part 6 and how well it did, as it ended with 12 episodes under its belt, an episode shorter than the first season thanks to episode 0. This is going to be more similar to what I did for Lupin Part 6's first season overview, discussing what it did right, what it did wrong, and in addition, I will talk about how well it compares with the first season on its own and as a continuation of Part 6. To be honest, this took a while to make as I was taking in a lot of the points that many great people have mentioned in the comments in the videos, what they enjoyed, what they didn't, and stuff they found interesting as well as comparisons. It helped me gain a better understanding of what some Lupin fans think of the season. It gave me a lot to think about, and I'm grateful for that. So, this should be a given. This is a spoiler warning to those who have not started Part 6 at all, as the dub is just being released as we speak, or those that have not finished the first and second season of Part 6, and a little bit of Part 5. All good? Then let's get started. Just to get this out right now, it is really difficult to say for me, still after all this time, which season was truly the best, as both seasons had some really good episodes and some not good episodes. I would say that in the first season's defense though, is that there is a clean line of what episodes are considered plot relevant and what is not, and those that were not were very experimental episodes as they broke the norm of what a one-off Lupin episode was. Take episode 4 for example, where it was taking very heavy inspiration from a short story called The Killers by Ernest Hemingway, and Kabero's Saga Rainy Dogs, a manga made by Mamoru Oshii, which is the same writer for this episode. Season 1 had several experimental episodes, and they were, in my opinion, good. A bit bizarre or a bit slower paced, but that doesn't make it bad. Again, especially being experimental Lupin. On the other side with season 2, every single episode could be seen as part filler and the other as plot relevant. Reason being is that due to every single woman, I mean almost every single woman, was relevant to the main antagonist of this season, Madame Tomoe. Yet the premise that each woman posed didn't matter to the main plot until it got to a specific point. The writers mixed in plot relevance and one-offs, and that is what we got for basically the entirety of the second season of Part 6. Now, is that a good thing? Yes and no. As some concepts for these episodes were good and others were not, especially to season 2's detriment, as skipping the episode wouldn't necessarily hurt for how the plot is integrated. For example, I personally enjoyed episode 17, Win or Lose in 0.1 seconds, as it showed a woman wanting to beat and capture Lupin out of love, and we get to see the crew work together to achieve their goal, and even some of the process of it and the struggles they arrived at. I felt as though this episode did a great job at providing us a filler episode scenario despite it being a little relevant to the plot at the end. But then you come across episodes like episode 21, objectively one of the worst episodes in this part, and I know JC_Ride would agree with me on this, as it takes the idea of shipping Fujiko with everyone in the crew thanks to one woman and her vivid imagination. A tiny bit of plot at the end, but that's really all it was. It has the room to explore some plot while keeping filler antics at a maximum, which is fine to do, but you still have to make the episode engaging somehow, and this was not the way to do it. There is no clear sense of direction, and season 2 suffers from that. And to be honest, when I say plot, that is putting it extremely lightly, and I'll explain why in a minute. I say the filler-like episodes in season 2 were good at times, and in some cases worse than season 1's one-off episodes. However, the biggest issue with season 2 for me is the plot. I say it is far worse than Sherlock Holmes' plot, yet that didn't fare much better either. My issue was that Madame Tomoe utilized almost all of these women we have seen to bring Lupin closer to her to then manipulate him, doing so by giving each of them a piece of a poem that is ingrained in Lupin by using different parts of his head. Simply saying a line of the poem won't do though, so she has each of these women natively speak different languages, help utilize Lupin's multilingual abilities to reach him and control him. This sounds like a really good plot point in theory, since utilizing Lupin's multilingual abilities is something we have never seen him do. Like ever. He is a phantom thief that travels the world. His multilingual abilities are essential to survive anywhere. But it all comes crashing down when each woman says their line of the poem in Japanese. So this huge revelation revealed at the last episode means nothing, as we went along with every single person saying their line in the poem in Japanese. It wasn't very fulfilling at all, and it seems so unnecessary. And there may be the excuse of, well, how could they get to say their line in that language? That's too much work. Well, they each said their line in their respective language at the end of the season. So there should be no excuse with the portrayal of any sort of language for this part of the plot. Even just having them say their part in their proper language at the time of the episode would make it a little bit more of an impact, since it is such a cool concept. Another disappointing aspect of the plot of season 2 is the antagonist, Tomoe, and Lupin's roots. Tomoe initially came off as a mysterious person with so much potential, being nothing we have seen before, which seems more exciting and darker than Sherlock's plot, as that plot was rushed and not very fulfilling either. As well as a direct connection to Lupin in his younger days sounds so exciting and can open the door to more for the Lupin franchise. So why does this disappoint me? Well, the mother part was a cop-out, as they aren't actually related. She just manipulated him, as all she wanted was to control over him for being the best student that she ever trained, which doesn't show how he was the best student outside of the lies she crafted. And then to Lupin's roots, since Tomoe isn't actually related to him, the box that Tomoe stole from the Lupin vault held proof as to Lupin's relationship with his family, his true roots. She stole it so she can fabricate being her mother to control him. Again, not much being fleshed out here. And the roots? Nothing that I can tell you, as it showed us that Lupin opened the box, viewed its contents, and then threw it into the fire to burn. All of this just to have an unfulfilling payoff, and pushes the message of his roots being the Lupin gang. Cheesy stuff, we always eat it up, but it's very unfulfilling. This plot attempts to replicate what Part 5 did, and yet Part 5 did it way better. It did show that Lupin isn't actually Lupin by showing he wears a mask to hide his true self, but it is blacked out so we can't see who hides underneath it, which is fine. It teases the idea of anyone can be Lupin. Me, you, or Joe working at your local Walmart. But this doesn't give us any sort of detail of the possible roots that Lupin once held. A more of left to your interpretation kind of BS, I guess. Although season 1 had a mediocre plot with a lame-ass versus aspect to it, it definitely wins here compared to season 2, as we actually had at least a little sense of fulfillment with Lupin and Sherlock semi-working together, and not from the cop-out of friends. I did partly expect some aspects of the manga to show through here, but I was wrong. Even the fact that Tomoe came out of nowhere showed very little backstory as to the aftermath of her supposed death, and the involvement of Mateo included within that, as she seems to be one of the first students possibly that she has taught. Again, nothing in terms of her background after the fact was fleshed out, so it's just more of a poof, here I am, that's it. Well, I have been talking about negatives for the second season so far. Let me talk about some things it did right. Nothing. The first thing I remember immediately is that I feel like season 2 adds in more silly stuff within the gang, strengthening and letting the audience know how tight-knit everyone is together despite the scenarios that occur. Whether that is playing cards to see who needs to make dinner, or Jigen hiding because of him enjoying watering flowers, or even watching Lupin getting ready and attempting to hack into a secret organization's funds with his feet as he talks to Fujiko through his laptop. I feel as though season 1 didn't have enough of that. It was too focused on the episodes, creating something more experimental and different, that it didn't really give enough of the gang's charm, and that's the biggest part of the franchise, is their charm. Hell, even Zenigata and Yara got a bit more screen time here, aside from arresting Lupin, which was a big complaint for me in the first season, because that's all he did. Zenigata not getting enough screen time is BS, because Lupin is nothing without him, and he has a personality, and season 1 did not do a good enough job showing that at all. Same with Yara, with season 2 giving us the most of Yara that we've ever seen so far in part 5 and in part 6. Even with the Lupin gang, Goemon, Jigen, and Fujiko had decent to great solo episodes that really shown off to who they are, an important part of the Lupin gang, with Goemon's episode being my personal favorite, as it pushes Goemon out of his comfort zone. I will definitely add to that season 2 made Lupin more of a badass, whether that was infiltrating Mercedes' base with the help of Goemon and Jigen, or with him fighting against Mattia on the rooftop bare fists and all. It definitely was able to show both sides of Lupin's goofy and serious side. Also, the Easter eggs in this season were more frequent, as episode 17 referenced green versus red, or episode 13 with Lupin's iconic run against the wall. Part 6 season 2, as a continuation of the first season, wasn't really great either. The fact that there are 2 separate plots to each season isn't the only problem, but also the layout of the episodes and how flexible those episodes allow for any sort of connections between both seasons. An example of this is Moriarty. He comes in as the professor, an important figure in the underworld. At the end of the season, is seen talking to Jigen and Goemon about the current Tomoe manipulation and the Lupin family. This is a connecting factor between both seasons through a very minor one, as he was introduced at the very last episode of season 1 and now at the last episode of season 2. As T2266 mentioned in the comments, maybe using Albert as a substitute for Moriarty, since he's more aware of the Lupin family and for being a contender for the Lupin III title, would serve well for these connections between the seasons. This would have been a fantastic idea and may have worked better overall than what we have gotten in the final product. I will say that season 2 was far darker in its approach than season 1, and I believe that episode 22 was the perfect example of what this could have been, as some horrible things happened or were mentioned and I was not expecting them at all. But it was underutilized, as it was a self-contained episode, as even the woman here wasn't exactly plot relevant like the other females within the season. It does show Tomoe as a horrible person who did horrible things to further her own goals, and then at the end of the season she gets what she deserves, especially after nonsense she pulled on Mattia and Finn's mother. She was also a crazy person for attempting to manipulate and then trying to kill Lupin after he figured her out, but Lupin took care of her anyways. And then Mattia proceeded to stab the shit out of Tomoe's dead corpse like the crazy person that she was. Darker atmosphere is definitely better here than in season 1, but not by a super long shot. Well, I did talk about a lot of stuff regarding season 2 of part 6, but what did you guys think? Did you prefer season 1 to season 2? Or do you think season 2 was peak of part 6? Let me know down in the comments below. As for now, if you are a big fan like me, I recommend rewatching part 6 in English dub, as it is coming out now as we speak. And I do love both dubbing casts very much, as they do a splendid job bringing our characters to life. And until next time, farewell.